Pigeon makes his long, slow, painful trek home to find a world in chaos after the feud among the gods wreaks havoc, destruction, and natural disasters. We're going to talk about it right here in our review of The Sacrificers number 8 from Image Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of The Sacrificers number 8. This issue is written by Rick Remender, with art by Max Fiumara, colors by Dave McCaig, letters by Russ Wooten, and the main cover A, is drawn also by Max Fiumara. Let's do the 60-second recap of what happened in the previous issue. It was a Soluna-only issue where we follow her as she's racing through the woods in the wilderness to get away from the engineer who tried to extract her godly power for a new brand of elixir that he wanted to take for himself and make himself immortal and possibly a god. She was incredibly weakened to the point of being almost immortal. She managed to overcome predators, the terrain and the landscape, and the thoughts that are impinging on her mind about herself when she was talking to her mother as a young girl, and recognizing the contentious relationship between her mother, Luna, who is the moon goddess, and her father, King Rokos. Eventually, she thought she reached high ground and was now safe, and then she was overcome and attacked by a dark entity that absorbed and possessed her body. That brings us to Sacrificers number 8, where we catch up with Pigeon as he finds his way home. He managed to hitch a ride with an old man driving a wagon, and as he moves along the dark road, the wagon is battered by winds and storms. The old man notes that there hasn't been a moon in the sky for weeks, and the land is basically devastated by natural disasters and all kinds of uncontrolled weather and nature gone amok. And as Pigeon rides through small towns, he sees that the people are scared. They're fearful that the end of the world is coming, and they may not be wrong. Eventually, Pigeon and the old man come to a fork in the road where they have to part ways. Pigeon goes on foot. He walks for many miles looking for familiar territory, looking for family and friends or anybody who might recognize him, especially his friend Beatrice, who always treated him like a person rather than as an object that was always meant to be sacrificed. Unfortunately, when Pigeon reaches Beatrice's home, it's completely destroyed and there's nobody left alive. The more Pigeon searches, the worse things look, and Pigeon figures the only thing he's left to do is to try and make it to the king's palace and try and talk to the king and explain to him what's really going on, how the gods really work, what it really means to be a sacrificer. As he moves through the surrounding townspeople that are stationed around the king's palace, and he sees that they've been essentially devastated by the tsunami, which we saw in the previous issue, they recognize him as one of the sacrificers, and all the townspeople immediately assume that they are being punished for the sacrificer running away from his duty, and they start chasing him and cursing him and throwing rocks at him and trying to shame him for being cowardly and for not living up to his duties. He makes it to the king's palace and he's met by the chief priest. The king is no longer there. He's fled to high ground. The chief priest meets him, but he's furious because he believes the same as the villagers, that they are being punished for Pigeon not living up to his duty. Before the chief priest can really lay into Pigeon, Pigeon passes out because he's just exhausted and hopeless, and every little bit of energy he's got is gone. He wakes up later inside the palace. He's been cleaned up a little bit, and he's seated at a dinner table, and then the chief priest just lays into him and berates him and insults him and screams at him, saying, "We are dying. The world is coming to an end because you didn't live up to your responsibility as a sacrifice. Therefore, the only way that we're going to fix this and the only way we're going to make this right is you have to do what you have to fulfill your duty. It's a little off the timing, but you have to do it. And that means you have to surrender yourself for a ritual sacrifice to appease the gods." Then we come to the last scene, which ends the issue on a high note, which is a gut punch, which is Pigeon entering a coliseum, and he's dressed in ritual robes. The chief priest enters. He's got on ritual armor and carrying a very large axe. And in that last moment, Pigeon decides to submit himself to ritual sacrifice. But there is a cliffhanger. It doesn't end the way you think it ends, and we'll leave it at that. So let's talk about the technical aspects, starting with the character development. This is a very Pigeon-centric issue, obviously, and it really develops him into the character of somebody who feels hopeless and completely dejected and beaten down by the world. Truly, almost the entire world is on top of him and yelling at him and screaming at him and hating him and reviling him for not allowing himself to be sacrificed, even though he has the knowledge of what the gods really do with the sacrificers, which is use their essentially life force as a form of energy drink, if you want to call it that. Uh, but there is a big turn or a big change in his personality in the last scene. We're not going to spoil it here, but it makes everything that Pigeon's gone through worth it as the world breaks him down and then he's forced to make a choice. Moving over to the art, it is impossible to express fully how good Max Fiumaro's art is for this story. The character designs are amazing. The background and the details of uh, the devastation that's in the surrounding countryside, the costumes, everything looks amazing. However, the detail is not what makes it. What makes it here is Fiumaro's ability to get the characters to express emotion, especially through Pigeon, who is just running. They're putting him through the ringer, and he's feeling it all: loss, grief, fear, anger, uncertainty, hopelessness. You get the whole range. It is a rainbow of emotional ups and downs, and you get it all. And that's an amazing bit of work from Fiumaro. Moving over to pacing and structure, I mean, it's hard to kind of really even break this down. If you think about it from a plot perspective, it's very simple. Character is moving from A to B, and he is pushed and pushed and pushed until he's broken, and then he's forced to make a choice. In terms of the hero's journey, if you want to call it that, it's as simple as it comes, but it's everything that's put on top of that rock solid skeletal structure that makes the story so powerful and impactful. And as Pigeon moves along through the countryside, eventually making his way to the king's castle, the levels of devastation increase and amplify and exponentially weigh on him and push him and press on him. But at no point do you feel like the story's slowing down or it's getting too slow or it's lingering. Every scene moves at just the right pace. And even though you're feeling the weight of the devastation of the countryside and how the fight between the gods is spilling over and onto everything, um, it doesn't just dwell on it. Pigeon is bombarded at a rapid fire pace with increasing rapidity and frequency as he gets to the king's castle. So the pacing is fantastic and the structure is fantastic. There are so many themes to explore in here from what Rick Remender has put together, but if you had to boil it down to what is this issue about, it's effectively the comic book version of the acceptance prayer. Pigeon has to come to accept what he cannot change, what's outside of his control. Then he has to learn and make a choice that forces him to accept what he can control. And he has to learn the difference between the two, which is the acceptance prayer. The worlds have just done the world dirty. They've made a mess of things, and it has nothing to do with the people or the sacrificers, but infighting amongst themselves, even though nobody realizes it except Pigeon. And then Pigeon now has to stand up and make a choice about what he's willing to accept and what he's not going to accept. And that guides where he goes from here. Final thoughts. What do we think about the Sacrificers number 8? It hits you hard. It just hits you hard on so many different levels, and it just, you come away from it remembering every little detail, which is excellent. Pigeon's surprise return sparks all the emotions, both within himself and the people around him, from outrage to heartbreak and even kind of crazy zealotry. All the different ranges of emotions are on full display. Rick Remender's tale about a lost soul accepting his place in the world is powerful and meaningful, and Max Fiumaro's emotionally impactful art is just amazing and gorgeous. Therefore, we're going to give The Sacrificers number 8 from Image Comics a 9.5 out of 10. It is pretty close to perfect, maybe with a minor nitpick or two, but other than that, this is an amazing comic and you definitely should pick it up. So let us know what you think. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Have you been reading The Sacrificers? If you're not, why? What is stopping you from picking up this comic? If you're looking for good comics, this is one of the good ones, if not one of the best ones. Pick it up, and I want to hear your thoughts about it down in the comment section. Otherwise, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned through the outro for the next review.